Alright guys, so we're back again for the last time of this series actually, or this series of videos. So we've done all the classes except for this one, which is the Mage, which is going to be fun actually. Quite enjoyed Fire especially, which you'll probably get from my comments. Fire's a really good spec, really enjoyed it. So if you're new to this series of videos, if you're a Mage, you've just found the video and you've not looked at any of the others, so we're going to look at the differences between Classic and TBC. So specifically we're going to look at talent changes and new abilities, the effect that the new abilities and talents have had on your rotation. We're then going to look at PvP and PvE viability for all the specs, and then just some final thoughts from me, just my closing thoughts after playing all the specs. I've done all of the specs in equivalent gear, so they're all in starting green gear. It's been great fun. Sad that it's the last one actually, but the next series of videos is going to be brilliant. So I've got a couple of sort of classic videos that I want to get out. So I'm working on an AQ20 and AQ40 guide, which they're going to be dropping soon. And then obviously the next series of videos for TBC, which will be coming in the next couple of days, with the first one being Feral Druid. Is going to be gearing, the best path of gearing. I've mentioned it on the intros on previous videos before. So what reps you want to go for first, what dungeons you want to focus on, what quests you might want to complete, group quests, items that are going to get you in Karazhan early when TBC comes out. So make sure you like, subscribe, check out the giveaway. So the growth on the channel, I keep saying it, the growth on the channel has been phenomenal. So thank you for that. Obviously, quicker we get to 1,000, quicker there'll be a live draw. Going to stream it, going to put it on YouTube, and you'll see somebody who's subscribed to this channel is going to get 3 months free game time or an Amazon voucher, whatever you prefer. So I won't keep you any longer. Let's just get straight into it. Okay, so I'm quite sad. This is the last one of the Classic to TBC change videos. I've really enjoyed doing them, really enjoyed playing all the classes, playing all the specs, looking at, what I think is the most powerful. I'm going to do one sort of bonus video, if you like, which is going to be a rundown of what I think is going to be the most powerful specs. I'll probably just do the top 5 following this video, but there's a couple of videos, like I mentioned in the intro, that I want to get out first. But let's just dive straight into this. This is quite an interesting one. There's some good changes, big shift in Mage meta, I feel. So, as we always do, we'll start with the talents. So, looking at, we'll go Arcane. So, for those who haven't seen before, so the browser window is the WoW Classic talents as they stand today, and then obviously I'm on TBC looking at the talents as they will be when we inevitably get our TBC launch. So for Arcane, tier 1 and 2 remain unchanged, so whatever you've got in Arcane at the moment on Classic you will have in TBC. There's not that many changes. There's a lot of additions obviously further down in the trees, but there's not that many actual changes like some of the classes have been changed drastically. This one is going to be quite a simple one, I think. So then we've got tier 3, Arcane Resilience, where you put 1 point in Classic and it increases your armor by an amount equal to 50% of your intellect. In TBC, it increases your armor by an amount equal to 100% of your intellect. So a lot more armor. The tank mage, yeah. So not nice change, not really needed, but still, a buff's a buff at the end of the day. So nothing wrong with that. So then tier 4, Arcane Meditation's been buffed. So at the moment, your Arcane Meditation, you put 3 points in it, it gives you 15% of your mana regen to continue while casting. In TBC, it's going to give you 30% of your mana regen to continue while casting. So you're going to need it. So as you've got, thank you JS for subscribing. As you get into TBC, if you're playing Arcane, you're now going to have Arcane Blast, which we'll go over that in the ability section, which follows the talents. But yeah, you're going to need that mana regen. So, but still, again, it's a nice buff. So then tier 5, so I'll always start with the Classic first. So if we go down to tier 5 in Classic, at the moment you've got Arcane Mind, which increases your maximum mana by 2% per point. So it's going to increase your maximum mana by 10% overall with 5 points. So now in TBC, if we go to that tier, it's now increasing your total intellect by 15%. So it's going to give you mana, but it's also going to give you crit. You're also going to there's more benefits than just just flat out giving you a slightly bigger mana pool. So yeah, the intellect is definitely it's better. It's better than max mana without a shadow of a doubt. So present of mind is still there, still remains the same. So still a 3-minute cooldown. Then you've now got improved blink, which all of the specs, again, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know all of the specs because of Arena coming out in TBC. There's a lot more class balance around PvP, so the majority of specs have been given. Some of them feel more like bolt-ons than anything else, where they're like, oh no, we haven't thought about PvP for this class, let's just give them some damage reduction to something. So but this one's quite nice. So for 4 seconds after casting blink, your chance to be hit by all attacks and spells is reduced by 13%. So with 2 points, that's 25%. So yeah, that's nice. 25% chance to resist, to be missed, and all of that for 4 seconds after blinking. Which, let's face it, if you're blinking away, you're blinking away from someone because they're probably doing some big damage, or they're bringing the pain. So the fact that now they're going to have a 25% chance to miss you, it's a decent change for PvP. My only argument to this will be when we get to the rotations and the specs, and when we start looking at that, Frost is the PvP spec. You're never going to go this deep in Arcane for PvP unless you're going some really niche 2s team of double Arcane Mage just to try and burst the healer down before they can do anything, which is a thing. And will be a thing. So either way, still quite nice. Not bad at all. Then what tier was that? So that was tier 5. So if we go down to tier 6, so Arcane Instability remains the same. So you've still got that, but you've now got 2 additions. So you've got Prismatic Cloak, again reduces all damage taken by 2% per point. 2 points, so reduces damage taken by 4%. Bit of a bolt on for PvP, but still. If you're going to be playing Arcane in PvP, still a nice way to spend 2 talent points. And then you've got Arcane Potency. Now this is a big one for the PvE boys out there. So increase the critical strike chance of any spell cast while clear casting by 10%. 3 points, so 30% crit chance when you're under the effect of clear casting. So just to recap, just in case you don't know the Mage Classic talents for any reason. So you get a 10% chance of entering a clear casting state basically whenever you hit a target with a spell. And that reduces the mana cost by 100%. So not only are you getting a free cast now, you're also getting a free cast with a 30% extra crit chance. Very nice in my opinion. Then we've got Arcane Power, remains exactly the same. And now all the new additions in Arcane. So then you've got Empowered Arcane Missiles. So your Arcane Missile spells gain an additional 15% of your bonus spell damage effects, but mana cost is increased by 2%. So with 3 points in that, you're going to get 45% of your bonus spell damage on your Arcane Missiles, but it's going to increase the mana by 6%. To me, that's an amazing trade-off. An extra 6% mana. You're probably going to get that extra 6% mana from additional mana sources like the buff to Arcane Meditation, places like that. So for Arcane, you will have issues with mana without a doubt, but that's the whole point. It's been that way from TBC when Arcane really became massively viable. So at the moment you've got Frost Arcane mages in Classic, but they're still Frost. They're Arcane because they've got the buffs from Arcane, but they're not really casting Arcane spells. But when Arcane as a school of magic became viable was in TBC, and from then until current day, the whole, well, when I say current day, I've only been playing a bit of retail recently, and I've not played a mage, so please don't quote me on BFA stuff. But the whole point was you had burn phases of Arcane, and then you had downtime phases. So you'll have exactly the same with Arcane in TBC, where you'll be burning with Arcane Blast. Once it stacks up, you'll go into Frostbolts till the debuff or buff, whatever way you want to put it, it is a buff really, falls off. Then you'll go back to Arcane Blasting. So you're just managing your mana. So you expect higher mana costs, but you're going to get high benefits from the high mana cost. So then you've got Spell Power. amazing for 2 points. Increases the critical strike damage bonus of all spells by 25% per point. So 50% critical strike damage from spells. Not a lot to talk about there. It's very nice. Then the last 5 points before you get your final big talent, which is not big for Arcane. So increases spell damage by up to 5% of your total intellect. So 25% of your intellect is going to convert to spell damage. Now, going back to the previous talent where they changed the... What did they change? It was where you get the bonus mana. Arcane Mind. So now, that explains the whole root of Arcane Mind where, at the moment in Classic, it increases your maximum mana by 2% per point. Now it's increasing by 3% intellect per point. So that 5 points you put in Arcane Mind now doesn't just equal intellect, spell power, intellect and crit, or mana and crit. It's now spell power as well. So as a whole, the talent tree up to there is really good, really strong. The last talent, however, it's a PvP talent. Maybe very niche situations where you might use it in PvE, but you won't take this in a PvE build. If you do, each to their own, but I wouldn't take it in a PvE build. I would go up to 5 points in Mind Mastery and then not worry about slow. But I'll read it out to you anyway. So reduces the target's movement speed by 50%, increases the time between ranged attacks by 50%, and increases casting time by 50%. Last 15 seconds, slow can only be on one target at a time. So again, it will have its use in PvE, don't get me wrong. But from a personal damage standpoint, it adds zilch. Which I know we should be bringing utility. We should be, bringing these utilities that each class gets to the raid. But this, as one of them, is probably not high up on that priority list. So Arcane is in a good place. So we'll move on to Fire. Okay, so Fire's in a pretty good place. You've got not many changes, but it's in a very good place. Trust me, it's the raiding spec in TBC. Definitely for the first couple of tiers, anyway. Gone are the days of spamming Frostbolt. Now you're going to be spamming Fireball. Yeah. So changes. So tier 1, 2, and 3 all remain completely unchanged. I don't think Blizzard knew what to do. So they all remain completely unchanged. As you can see, I'm playing Fire actually now. It's brilliant. I love it. Don't need Pyroblast though, but we'll get into that later. When we move down to Tier 4, so the main change in Tier 4 really is improved Fire Ward. So at the moment, it causes your Fire Ward to have a 10% chance to reflect fire spells while active, 20% with 2 points. You've still got that, but instead of being called Improved Fire Ward, it's now called Molten Shields. That's because you get a new ability called Molten Armor. So basically, we'll go over Molten Armor in a minute when we get to the abilities section, but in addition to your normal Molten Armor effects, it also has a 50% chance to affect ranged and spell attacks. So with 2 points, 100%. So spoiler alert, Molten Shield affects melee. You probably couldn't guess that, but there you go. Spoiled it for you and told you anyway. So, yeah, pretty nice. Tier 5, so if we just move down to Tier 5, so Blast Wave has had a cooldown reduction, which is quite nice. So it's 45 seconds at the moment in Classic, and it's down to 30 seconds in TBC. I've not took it, and I don't believe you really need it for a PvE raiding spec, but still, it's still nice. Fire, I wouldn't PvP as Fire, I'd PvP as Frost, but it is actually quite a nice PvP talent. And even farming, just to have Flame Strike, Dragon's Breath, Blast Wave, 3 massive, quick, boom, 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 kill all the mobs. It's still a nice ability. But for a PvE raiding spec, you probably won't take it. So, as well as the Blast Wave cooldown reduction, you've now got a new talent on that tree, as you can see, or on that tier, sorry. So, you've now got Playing with Fire, so increases all spell damage caused by 3% and spell damage taken by 3%. Let's face it, the only thing you're really interested in there is the 3% spell damage. The spell damage taken it's neither in or there. It's increasing the amount of damage you take, but 3%. You let's put it this way: you wouldn't not take that talent because you was worried about your healer's mana. We'll move on. So next tier after that, so you got firepower still, you got firepower in classic, but you've now got blazing speed. Again, bit of a PvP talent, but still quite nice nonetheless, you know. So it grants you a 5% chance when you're hit by a melee or ranged attack to increase your movement speed by 50% and dispel all movement impairing effects. So that's going to be, yeah, a 10% chance. It's very nice, you know, very nice for PvP. But again, you're not really going to PvP as fire. You could go some really big burst fire DPS spec, but in PvP I'm talking. But when all your burst is gone, you're also going to be gone. Rip. But anyway, you know, each to their own. If you want to PvP as fire, I'm not here to tell you what to do, how to play. Just telling you the facts, or trying to be as factually accurate as possible. So then tier 7. So combustion hasn't changed, unfortunately. Excuse me. I say it hasn't changed, unfortunately, because for any mages that have played throughout all the expansions, they'll know combustion does get very, very good, but at the moment it's still just that stacking 10% crit up to 30%. So it's still nice, but yeah, it's not what we want. Let's just put it that way. So then you've got Molten Fury, which is a new addition. So increases the damage of all spells against targets with less than 20% health by 20%. You could compare this to a Mage Execute. Yeah, under 20%, you're going to do 20% more damage. You know, what cooldowns have you got where you do 20% more damage for 20% of the fight? That's a large portion of the fight. That's like having a really overpowered trinket active for the last 20% of the fight. Really nice. And that's, you know, one of the reasons why fire is really viable. Especially, you know, save your trinkets for that last 20%. You know, save combustion for that last 20%, or you know, if it's a longer fight, it might be back by the time they're under 20%. It's yeah, very nice. So Pyromaniac increases your chance to critically hit and reduces the mana cost of all fire spells by 3%. 3% crit. You know, the mana cost is nice as well. You know, reduction, but still 3% crit. Nothing much to talk about there. Empowered Fireball, so your Fireball spells gains an additional 15% of your bonus spell damage effects. Again, 15% of your spell power onto Fireball. Not much to talk about. Very similar to the Arcane one we spoke about, and it will be probably very similar to the Frost one, I would have thought as well. So, but still, nice, free damage. And then Dragon's Breath. So Dragon's Breath is a nice 20-second cooldown AoE. You would take this in a PvE spec, to be fair. It's nice. It's nice to get up close and bang that on. So overall, decent spec. You'll see in the next section when we're going over new abilities and stuff, some gameplay, and you'll see me using Dragon's Breath a lot. So that's fire. Let's go into Frost now. So Frost again, there's a few changes in Frost, but nothing major. Okay, so then getting into Frost, one of the unwelcome changes, in my opinion, Elemental Precision. So currently in Classic, it reduces your chance that an opponent can resist your Frost and Fire spells by 2%. So 3 points, 6%. Took a bit of a nerf in TBC, and not really sure why, because all the other classes have been given loads of hit. You know, all the specs have been given, like, some specs can near enough get hit capped just in talents. Need minimal amount of hit from gear. Not quite the same for mages. Don't know why. Maybe there weren't much love for the mage, but trust me, there will be, because your damage is going to be sick. So it's now only 3% for the same amount of talent. So 3 points, 3%, but 6 points in classic. So yeah, not great. So tier 2 remains completely unchanged, exactly the same. This is where it gets interesting. So tier 3. So Cold Snap. Cold Snap is what you would get in Classic at the moment in your third tier. That's now been moved further down, so we'll get to that in a minute. But instead of it, what you've got is Icy Veins. A 20% spell casting speed buff on a 3-minute cooldown, and it lasts 20 seconds. I mean, that is really, really nice. And it's not frost spells, you know, it's all spells. So whether you're arcane or you're fire, you're still probably gonna want to put 11 points in frost just to get, you know, that 20% spell casting speed cooldown. It's immense. So it's a mini heroism / bloodlust. So awesome. Then the rest of the stuff in tier 3 is the same. Yeah, everything else remains the same. Tier 4, the only thing really that's changed, and again, not really sure. There's some weird changes to Frost. They've tried to make Frost more of the PvP spec, and they have achieved what they wanted for whatever reason. So at the moment, the go-to spec really, is Frost, Arcane Frost in Classic, but in TBC, the only Frost mages you'll really see are Frost mages that can't get their head around another spec, or they PvP mainly but join raids, so they just stay Frost. But the hardcore PvEers are going to be Fire or Arcane, or I'd say Arcane Frost, but it's still Arcane. They're not going to be Deep Frost. So, yeah, they changed Frost channeling. So it reduces the mana cost of your Frost spells by 5% and reduces the threat caused by 4%. That's TBC. So in Classic, it reduces the mana cost of your spells by 5%, so exactly the same, but reduces your threat caused by 10%. So you get 30% threat reduction in Classic, yet you're only going to get 15% in TBC. So it's like they're removing some threat. It feels a bit like a conspiracy to me. They're trying to make you mages. If you're Frost, you go in arenas. If you're not Frost, you're allowed in raids. Maybe we should write a strongly worded email to Blizzard about the mistakes they made 14 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago. So, all good. So, tier 5. So, Cold Snap. So, when we move down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, Ice Block's there at the moment in Classic, but now you've got Cold Snap there, because Ice Block is now an ability for all mages. So you don't get it from a talent. Fire Mage has got it, an Arcane Mage has got it, a Noob Mage has got it, a Pro Mage has got it. Everybody's got Ice Block. So that's cool. Improved Cone of Cold stays exactly the same. So the new one is Frozen Core, reduces damage taken by Frost and Fire spells by 2%, 3 points, so 6%. Like I said, when you get deep in these trees, they just try and bolt on some PvP talents, and this is not just Mage. This is every spec that I've looked at in TBC. So the only difference is the Frost spec is going to be the PvP spec, so it's actually quite nice. But yep, that's all good. So then we've got Winter's Chill still there, exactly the same, but now you've got Ice Flows, so reduce the cooldown of your Cone of Cold, Cold Snap, Ice Barrier, and Ice Block by 10%, so 20% with 2 points. So a fifth of the cooldown off of those spells. Very nice. Again, when you look at the abilities though, so Cone of Cold, Cold Snap, Ice Barrier, and Ice Block, all very PvP abilities. Ice Block and Ice Barrier, yes, they may be useful in PvE, but you wouldn't really, to have the cooldown reduced on them, do you need them? I mean, how many times do you need to Ice Block in a fight? If you can't move out of stuff, try and get DBM. So they are tailoring Frost for PvP successfully. So Ice Barrier is still there. So now I can just close this down like I always do, and we can get on to the last new ones of the last tree. So Arctic Winds increases all frost damage you cause by 1% and reduces the chance melee and ranged attacks will hit you by 1%. Oh wait, deep in frost and we've got more PvP talents. So 5% frost damage and 5% less chance to be hit. Lovely. If you was a PvE frost mage, still nice to get at 5% frost damage, but the 5% not to be hit, you're more or less 50% of that talent you're losing out on by being a PvE mage. So, Empowered Frostbolt, again, pretty much exactly the same as Fire and Arcane. Your main spell is getting bonus spell damage, so you're getting 10% additional of your spell damage, your bonus spell damage, and an additional 1% chance to critical strike. So you're going to get 5% crit and 10% of your spell damage. And then the big one, the Summon Water Elemental, which is sick. It's awesome. It's great. You've got a ranged Nova now, which is, immense to get those big shatter combos off. I'm not going to talk about the new abilities, but you're going to get Ice Lance, spoiler. You know, so you're going to get all these things where you can do big damage when they're frozen. But, again, you can't freeze a boss. You know, you can't Frost Nova a boss, you can't use your Elemental to Frost Nova a boss. So it's still trash, dungeons, heroics, PvP, but ultimately PvP. So, but all the talents as a mage, it's all in a really good place. You know, if I was playing a mage, I'd be happy. Oh, I'd be very happy because I hate Frost and love Fire and love Arcane. So I would be ecstatic if I was a mage. So let's get on now to let's go on to the new abilities. And I'll actually, even if I'm Fire, but I'll even like show you the new abilities as well. So we'll start with, just check my little list. So Arcane Blast. So Arcane Blast is obviously your bread and butter as an Arcane Mage. So it blasts the target with energy, dealing 648 to 752 Arcane damage. Firstly, ignore the numbers. It will be completely different when the game goes live. Be dependent on gear, dependent on tuning, and all of that. So ignore the actual damage, but it does a crap load of damage. Each time you cast Arcane Blast, the cast time is reduced while the mana cost is increased. An effect stacks 3 times and that lasts 8 seconds. So now if I get a little toolbox here and I'll just show you the ability. So quite a long cast, it for a K, quicker cast, 1.5k, but that was a crit, quicker cast, now getting like 1k, 1.1, 1k, so you know, it hits decently hard. It doesn't cost that much mana, really. So the Arcane Blast time was reduced by 1 second. So it's a 2.5 second cast. So it comes down to a 1.5 second cast. But it increases the damage by 225% when it's stacked. So I'll do it again. But you got to remember, I'm not Arcane. Obviously, I am Fire. So it's not exactly optimal to be using this. But you can still see, you know, you can imagine you're going to be doing some pretty decent damage with that. And then you get the extra crit chance like I just got with clear casting there. 2k crits, you know, very nice. Not to grumble at. Not the spec I would play, I'd be Fire, but I would need to stop saying that. So now you also get Invisibility. So I'll open it in the talent, the actual spellbook pane, so it's easier for you to read. So fades the caster to invisibility over 5 seconds, reducing threat each second. The effect is cancelled if you perform or receive any actions. While invisible, you can only see other invisible targets and those whom can see invisible. So it's sort of like a 5-minute cooldown, 20-second stealth. You know, it's pretty good to skip stuff. The main purpose is a threat dump. So, you know, you would do big burst on a boss. We'll pretend this is a boss and you're just going to like go ham. And then you've gone ham and you're like, oh my god, my tank's undergeared. I'm over aggroing, and then you'd quickly invis. Obviously, it's not going to do anything against this because I'm the only person in combat. But you invis as a threat dump. It's your vanish. It's your feigned death. You know, it's that's really the ultimate PvE purpose of it. So you can, go a bit mental at the start. When you start getting towards second place, just pop invis and then carry on. Or you can use it for skipping stuff, and you know, it's a great ability anyway overall. And then my favourite one, I really should have been a bit more prepared, and I should have gone somewhere where I could actually use it. But Spell Still is brilliant, and there's one particular dungeon that really stands out, which is. It's one of the Tempest Keep ones, so I won't say one of them, I just mean one of the general area dungeons. So it's one of the Tempest Keep ones. I think it might be Alcatraz, where you spell still a fire buff and you can instant cast, bang, like one after the other, fireballs. Please let me know in the comments exactly what one it is, because I can't remember, but I think it's Mechanar or Alcatraz, one or the other. So, pretty sure it weren't Botanica. So, Spell Still, really, really nice. So, I'll just read out what it does. So, Still is a beneficial magic effect from the target. This effect lasts a maximum of 2 minutes. So, in TBC, there were some really interesting Spell Stillable buffs. You know, but you can literally, you know, just run around and Spell Still blessings off paladins and Spell Still, you know, whatever you want. Just take whatever you want. It's only lasts 2 minutes, but still. Yeah, it's amazing, like great ability. And if you're clever with it, you can pump out some good numbers in PvE. You know, if there's some trash mobs before a boss that have got a really good spell stillable, a buff, then steal it, use it on the boss. It's really good. Yeah, amazing ability. I wish I had it as a druid. So then Molten Armor. So I spoke about Molten Armor when we was doing the talents. Let me just open it up here for you there. So, causes 75 damage when hit, increases your chance to critically hit with spells by 3%, and reduce the chance you are critically hit by 5%. So, 3% crit, I mean, let's face it, that's all we're bothered about from a PvE perspective. And 75 damage when hit, yeah, neither really here or there. And that was what that talent done, so the Molten Armor talent. Also, at the moment, that just affects melee, but if you get the Molten Armor talent, then it also will affect ranged and spell attacks as well. So, nice bit of reflect damage. Again, more for PvP, or maybe solo farming to a certain extent. So, yeah, you wouldn't take Molten Shields in a PvE build. This is a good PvE build that I'm using here. So, I've got clear casting. You know, I've got a bit of AoE as well, extra AoE, because, as you know, as a mage, it always comes to that point where you get bored of doing everything right and you just start spamming Arcane Explosion. So, good balanced build. And then last one. So, last one for you Frost Mage heroes. You've now got Ice Lance, and Ice Lance is amazing, to be fair. It would be the... Why can I not see it? There it is. So, Ice Lance deals 177 to 206 frost damage to an enemy target. Causes triple damage against frozen targets. So again, I'll do the same again. I'll just show you. So let's freeze this guy. And then let's just Ice Lance. 842. Instant cast. You know, I mean, that is strong. And then I'll do what I just said. I'll just Arcane Explosion it down. But, 892 on an instant cast. That is really, really strong. So, we'll just try it once more. Let's freeze him. 815. But imagine if he was Frost. 1.2k crit there. Not even Frostspect. So, yeah. Nice ability. And that's the run around and kite and own in PvP ability. Your Frostbolt, Ice Shatter combos. Just immense. It is good, really good. So they're the new abilities, some amazing abilities. I think Mage has done probably better than anyone. You've got some solid new abilities: Spell Steal, Invisibility. I mean, you've been just those two alone. You didn't need anything else. Just greedy, to be fair. But all good. So abilities done. Let's move on very swiftly to rotation. So I'm not going to talk about Frost. I'm only going to talk about Fire and Arcane. Purely because I see Frost as a PvP spec. I'll show you the PV. Actually, let's do that now. So let's go over the talents first. So I'll put those all up on screen. But we'll start with Fire. Because Fire's got two sort of routes you can go down. So Fire's got a sort of sustained route, so mana. So that's what I'm using. I would say the sustained route, which is where I'm going for clear casting. I want mana back. Or there's a pure just burst route, which in higher gear is probably the better option to go for, and that's where you're going to get Icy Veins. So whereas for me, for my testing purposes, it's just better that I have to drink less because I get more done. So I'll put both those on screen now. Not really, you got some wiggle room in some talents. Some of it's personal preference, but overall, if you chose the mana consumption one, which is on the left, that that will serve you well. But till you get a bit of gear. Once you've got a bit of gear from Karazhan, maybe you want to switch to just go like full nuke and not worry about mana. You'll probably be able to do the full nuke build by the time you're Karazhan geared, which shouldn't take too long, a few resets. So yeah, now I'm going to put Arcane. I'll put Arcane and Frost on together. So Arcane, again, you can move bits about, but it's fairly standard. You don't need slow. You know, it's a solid PvE spec. You will be doing a bit of, you know, your Arcane Blast, and then to mana conserve, you'll be using Frostbolt. So that's why we're going down the Frost tree. And then for Frost, go and kill Horde. Why are you raiding? Just go and kill Horde. You're a Frost Mage. You're OP. But anyway, so let's go over the rotation. So we'll start the rotation for fire. So these rotations are only going to take a minute because they are very easy. So obviously you'll be using Molten Armor for the crit, or you might want to use Mage Armor for, again, more mana preservation if you're having mana problems early on in the game. Ideally, you'd like a Shadow Priest in the party with you to feed off of that mana battery, so you can just keep going and going and going and going. But you're more or less just going to keep improved Scorch on the mob and spam Fireball. I wasn't joking earlier when I said you're swapping Frostbolt for Fireball. There's not anything else to do. So just keep your... I mean, I can demonstrate it to you because like I've got mad skills. I can press those two buttons. So, you know, spam Scorch, get your Scorch debuff up. You want all the mages in the group to be helping getting the Scorch debuff up. It's up, now you spam Fireball. And now just between you fire mages in the group, make sure that Scorch stays on 5 stacks. It really is that easy. Obviously, time in your combustion well, so I've popped combustion there. You know, making sure you're using it at the right time. If you've got any trinket cooldowns or anything like that, but ultimately you'll be doing, depending on your haste levels, somewhere between sort of 5 to 8 fireballs and then 1 Scorch. So 5 to 8 fireballs, 1 Scorch. It's an easy rotation. The hard thing will be learning the boss mechanics, and you know, you want to maximize the amount of time you stood still, minimize the amount of time you're moving. Okay, so that's basically fire. So then if we go on to Arcane, so really the main thing is Arcane Blast until you're maybe uncomfortable with mana. And I don't mean go down to 2% mana and then go, oh, I feel pretty uncomfortable now. You know, you might want to Arcane Blast to about 80%, then start doing some Frostbolts till the debuff falls off, then Arcane Blast maybe for another 20% mana, then switch to Frostbolt again. But that's pretty much it. You can use Fire Blast as a filler, but you can do that for fire as well, obviously. If you're moving, so if you're moving, just pop a Fire Blast in just to keep damage up on the boss. Make sure you're using Arcane Power at the right time, so... You know, Curator, for example, in Karazhan, let's talk early game, you know, takes 200% extra damage when he evocates. You're going to want Arcane Power for that. You know, that you need to be smart about when you're using your cooldowns, but the rest of it's pretty basic. Arcane, yeah, as I say, Arcane Blast, and just try and sustain as much mana regen as you can. You know, beg for innovates, make sure you're in a group with a mage for Vampiric Touch. Those sort of things. Yeah, it really is just a balancing act with your mana to damage output for an Arcane Mage, but very, very viable. Then I should have probably done it when we went over the talents, as I normally do, but we'll just do it now. I'll put fire at the top and then arcane underneath. So, you know, these are sort of the stats in early gear, what you'll be going for. Obviously, we're going to get into this a lot more in the second series of videos. So this is the final one, as I say. And then we're going to look at gearing path and what gear specifically you want before you go into Karazhan, or as close to, you know, the perfect gear set before you go into Karazhan. But we can leave that there anyway. So that's... We've covered talents, abilities, rotation, stat priority, all those sort of things. So let's just move on to viability, because you know they're viable. You know, a mage will always be viable. They always have. They always will be. Strong class in both PvE and PvP. So if you want to be, for me, like I've said over and over again, Frost is the PvP spec. Fire is the PvE spec. Arcane is the maybe secondary for both. And I say that because I think Arcane's going to be really strong, but not on long fights, obviously. So you're probably not going to be arcane to begin with. You'll go arcane in sort of tier 5. And I'll tell you what, actually, I'll put it on screen. Why you might go arcane in tier 5 is because of the 2-piece set bonus. So the 2-piece set bonus for arcane, obviously, it goes without saying, it's really nice. So you maybe by tier 5 you'll be arcane, but fire you want to be in tier 4 unless you're going to be PvPing, in which case then, maybe join a casual raiding guild and raid as Frost. Your damage is not going to be as high as the Fire Mages, but it's not going to be probably as low as the tank. Maybe. Awkward. So, all of it's viable. PvE, PvP, you can PvE and PvP as Arcane Fire and Frost. If you want to be optimal though, you want to PvE as Fire to begin with, you want to PvP as Frost, there will be these niche setups where, it's Arcane Mage Rogue or double Arcane Mage. Even Fire Shadow Priest works really well, which is a strange one, but does work very well because of dots and ignite. You're never going to be, you're never going to be the best arena team on the server playing a setup like that, but it's fun. I used to play Feral Druid Rogue, and obviously we got Gladiator, but we was nowhere near the best in the world or anything like that. But it was just a fun setup. We just ran in and burst, and then once the burst was gone, we was gone. So that's the viability, and then just my thoughts on the class. I mean, yeah, it's really nice. I've always loved Fire Mage, like always loved Fire Mage. It's the only mage spec I like, to be fair. I like Frost, but it takes no thought. You just put Ice Shield up, or Ice Barrier, and just spam Frostbolt. When you're running around grinding, I'm talking about. Yeah, AoE farming is quite difficult even. Even boosting in Scarlet Monastery and stuff like that takes hours and hours and hours of practice. So my brother's recently re-rolled to Frost Mage from Hunter, and he's just been spending all his time learning, exactly how to do SM boosts in Classic and how to do Zolfarret boosts and Moradon, and it's time consuming, which I would probably enjoy that. But I just haven't got the patience to level 1 for that long, I don't think, just to be able to solo AoE dungeons. But again, it's personal preference. I was quite disrespectful towards the Hunter class, but it's just not for me, it also helps if I enjoy more than one spec. So, like Priest, for example, love Shadow Priest, but don't particularly like healing on one. So it may be an alt just to have a Shadow Priest, the same way a Mage might be an alt to have a Fire Mage, but I probably would never spec into Frost or Arcane ever, because I only enjoy the one spec. That's why I play a Druid. I love healing on a Druid. I love DPSing as Boomkin or Feral on a Druid. I don't like tanking, but 3 out of 4 ain't bad, is it? So, but we'll leave it there. My thoughts, if you're a mage, you're in a good place. You've got good talent changes, you've got amazing new abilities. I was going to say good new abilities. You've got amazing new abilities. You should be really happy about those. So, roll on TBC and roll on the next series of videos. As I say, it brings a tear to my eye that these ones are now done, but at least we can move on to bigger, better things. And as I say, the gearing guides, the detail and even the production quality of it that I'm going to go into I'm hoping you're going to like it, but we'll find out. So I'll see you soon.